Netanyahu's threat to world leaders who voted to recognize the Palestinian state. Wait for it. From the beginning, I want to quote some of the last words Charlie Kirk said days before he was assassinated. He said, "They are going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza." A few days later, he was dead, and what followed was a Hollywood-like script with a distractor in the crowd saying he did it, while the actual perpetrators made their escape. And the patsy, Tyler Robinson, he played his programmed role along with his tranny roommate lover. Then there's the crazy, magically disassembled, reassembled, disassembled, and then reassembled rifle, conveniently wrapped in a towel in a cardboard box in the trees, followed with a story about the markings on the unused bullets, but absolutely nothing about the bullet that actually killed Charlie Kirk. Former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated after Netanyahu incited the ultra-right-wing settlers because Rabin was honestly and truly looking for peace and a Palestinian state. That was the beginning of Netanyahu's wait for it moment. He stirred up the environment for ultra-right-wing settler to assassinate Rabin. You forgot about that. Too often, this is what Netanyahu means when he says, wait for it. I want you to listen to this from Netanyahu, spoken in the European Yiddish, bastardized version of Hebrew. And after that, I will elaborate on what Netanyahu said.
יש לי מסר ברור לאותם מנהיגים שמכירים במדינה פלסטינית לאחר הטבח הנורא ב7 באוקטובר. אתם מעניקים פרס עצום לטרור. ויש לי מסר נוסף עבורכם. זה לא יהיה. לא תקום מדינה פלסטינית ממערב לירדן. במשך שנים אני מנעתי את הקמתה של מדינת טרור זו מול לחצים אדירים, גם מבית וגם מן החוץ. עשינו זאת בנחישות ועשינו זאת בתבונה מדינית. לא כל שכן, הכפלנו את ההתיישבות היהודית ביהודה ושומרון ונמשיך בדרך זו. המענה לניסיון האחרון לכפות עלינו מדינת טרור בלב ארצנו, המענה הזה יינתן לאחר שובים מארצות הברית. תמתינו.
Netanyahu, he said, I have a clear message for those leaders who recognize a Palestinian state after the horrific massacre on October 7th. Well, the Palestinian state attack upon white land thieving settlers was arranged and coaxed by Netanyahu, who was about to be put on trial for corruption. Since that October 7th event, Netanyahu has an international arrest warrant against him for giving the order and presiding over the killing of more than 65,000, mostly Palestinian women and children in Gaza. He has also been starving them and shooting many when they arrive to get food at locations. What I want you to pay attention to is how Netanyahu will use terrorists where the word Palestinian should be used. Netanyahu says, you are giving a huge reward to terrorism. Instead of saying you are giving a huge reward to Palestinians, he substitutes in the word terrorism. Netanyahu then says, I have another message for you. It will not happen. Netanyahu then says a Palestinian state will not be established west of the Jordan River. Here he slips, and instead of saying a terrorist state, he says a Palestinian state, and that it will not be established essentially in Gaza or the West Bank. Naturally speaking, in the made-up European Yiddish version of Hebrew, Netanyahu is trying to allay the fears of his most ultra-extreme Zionist groups in the Israeli state. After all, they have put great hope and faith in Netanyahu, expanding the borders to what they once were under the Afro-Asiatic king, King Solomon, which extended to the banks of Iraq's Euphrates River. Netanyahu realizes the overwhelming vote in favor of a Palestinian state in the United Nations is a huge loss for him, making him a false prophet to the Zionist cult. This goes a long ways in killing the cult's vision. So Netanyahu then says, for years I have prevented the establishment of this terrorist state, despite tremendous pressure both domestically and internationally. Back in form, Netanyahu says terrorist state instead of Palestinian state. This reflects an anger and disdain, knowing he was defeated in losing all of the votes from European countries, the actual homelands of Netanyahu's clan. His plea to his cult settlers is that he has obstructed and prevented official recognition of a Palestinian state. However, he knows he has failed. Netanyahu then says, we did this with determination, and we did it with diplomatic wisdom. True about determination, but not true about diplomatic wisdom. Instead, in diplomatic wisdom, it was military force that has been used to stop the recognition by a majority vote in the United Nations that would officially seat Palestine as an equal member within the United Nations. Frankly, it was the extremely excessive military force, not unlike Nazi Germany, that forced European countries to vote unanimously for Palestine. Again, a huge loss for Netanyahu. So he goes on, he says, moreover, we doubled Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria, and we will continue on that path. In other words, ethnic cleansing. What he does here is admit that he is not an honest broker, and really never was. His goal has always been to erase Palestinians, and as he said, increase their numbers wherever Palestinians are. That's not Yitzhak Rabin. That's why Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated. So Netanyahu then says, the response to the latest attempt to impose a terrorist state in the heart of our land will be given after my return from the United States. Again, instead of a Palestinian state, Netanyahu says a terrorist state is being imposed in the heart of our land. In 1948, even the first prime minister of the Rothschild-formed state says she is Palestinian and has a Palestinian passport. Yet Netanyahu would rather you believe there never was a Palestine, never was a Palestinian people, but a terrorist people, long present in the land when Netanyahu's Polish parents arrived in the United States. Netanyahu ends his message to his shocked constituents with, wait for it. He is coming to modern Egypt, to America, to the United States, hoping it can work a miracle that defies the rest of the world, that has told Netanyahu's clan its vision of a greater Israel is dead. I close with Netanyahu and his wife should study. They should study what happened to Benito Mussolini, Prime Minister of Italy. This is T. West with Afro Synergy News.